Robert Plank Show, episode 282. Get attention, traffic, leads, and sales from podcasting. Hey, it's Robert Plank, and are you familiar with Mr. Jackass? Because I think you are. Now, I'm talking about Mr. Jackass because haven't you ever scrolled past a Facebook video, or maybe a YouTube video, or even listened to a podcast, and you thought to yourself, that Jackass, and we'll call him Mr. Jackass, that Jackass is getting all kinds of popularity, and you know what? I could do way better than that. So this is the most important course you'll ever join today for this reason, and it's at podcastcrusher.com. And here's why it's so important that you create a podcast. And by the way, a podcast is what you're listening to right now. A podcast is an iTunes radio show. And even if you record just a quick 5-minute audio episode, or even better, 2 quick 5-minute audio episodes this year, guess what? That is enough. One single 5-minute episode or audio recording session or whatever you want to call it, that alone is enough for you to create a podcast. Even if you mess up, you say you record using your phone or using your computer's built-in microphone and it sounds all echoey, it doesn't matter. As long as you have something good to say, who cares about the audio quality? In seconds, any audio clip you record can be that first episode of your podcast, your radio show on iTunes, and that becomes your very first episode. That becomes your very first podcast. And that allows you to compete with Mr. Jackass, because the popularity of Mr. Jackass, that person that just seems to always be out marketing you even though your stuff is way better, the popularity of Mr. Jackass is on the rise. And you're probably wondering, well, what can I do to get that sort of attention, the attention that Mr. Jackass gets on my marketing and on my websites, if not more? What exactly can I do to avoid being passed over or even worse, lost in the crowd? Well, you may have been told to get out more, right? People tell you, maybe you just heard this in general, maybe you have a coach, whatever. They tell you to network more or even land yourself some affiliates or joint venture partners. Maybe even Mr. Jackass himself gets all these people saying how great he is, all these affiliates. You say, I want some traffic too. I want affiliates too. Where's my slice of the pie? When will it be my turn? So this is just my opinion, but offline marketing events are one of those things that people tell you to go to, network and mingle, but offline marketing events, at least these days, are either too small because there's only a handful of people there. It's a very small event, so you don't get to meet the people that you need to meet, the people that you need to network with, right? Or you go to an event and it contains thousands of people, and this event you attend is such a huge event that you and that next person that you're trying to find, your next partner, client, someone to add to your team, you want to join someone else's team, whatever, that person you want to meet, well, you never get a chance to meet them at a huge event because there are so many dang people in attendance. There's no way you'll be able to single each other out because there's just tons of people all around you as you pass in the halls, go in the rooms, whatever. And so the other thing about offline events is that many social groups or cliques have already been established. So those people who would have been a perfect match for your business might not even give you the time of day because they're in a clique, you're not in their little social circle, right? So heck, even if you find that special business person, that special someone, well then what do you say to them, right? You meet someone at an offline networking event, what do you say? Here's my card, here's my website, mail to my stuff? Well, I don't think so. So here's what has always worked for me. Going back years and years with offline events, if I meet someone and we kind of hit it off, I tell the person, when you get home, email me and we will record a 20-minute podcast episode together, an interview. I'll interview you about who you are and what you do. And they usually have a business card to give to me so I can follow up if they forget. And these days with email and Facebook, it's always very easy to catch someone even after you meet with them. And if you met with them in person, it makes a great first impression. They'll remember who you are, but then follow up afterwards. And you know what's even better? I'm talking about offline events, but you don't even have to attend these offline events these days if you don't want to. If your reasoning for attending an offline event was to get some new contacts, get some new people, then what number would be great? If you attended one offline event and maybe it cost you, $1,000 or $2,000 or maybe even $3,000 or $4,000 with the flight and the hotel and food, maybe you spent 3, 4, even 5 days away from your business, away from your family, away from your usual stuff, all that stuff. Offline events seem kind of archaic when you look at that, even when you say, okay, well, I'm going to go there and do all this just to land 5 connections, right? Well, even if you don't want to attend offline events, email some marketers you know. Contact people who have been guests on other podcasts, because good luck sending a cold email to get someone to buy from you or even partner with you, but a cold email to land a podcast guest to help that guest promote their business, easy. And you do all that stuff we just mentioned just to land 5 guests or 5 connections. Well, what if you just stayed at home and you sent out 20, 30, 50, 100 emails? Now you have about 10 events worth of guests, right? 20 events worth of guests. And here is what's great about the strategy of when you make a new connection, no matter how you make the connection, get them on a podcast, is if they flake and this Skype interview where they hop on, you record, you ask them questions, they give you answers, if this interview never happens, and that candidate, that person that you were just thinking about doing business with, they just weeded themselves out for you. But if the interview goes great, you have an in with them, and they now owe you a favor because you promoted them first. And you know what, too? If you decide that that guest you had was kind of a dud, or maybe if the interview itself was okay, but you're just too busy to partner with them and do anything else, well, you have an out as well. You have a way to get out of doing business with them because you already did your part to get the word out about them. So it works for you both ways, right? If you want to keep on with that relationship, great. If not, then it was a nice connection. It only got that far. Now, just imagine, just for a second, and just for fun, what if you had landed a super young Mark Zuckerberg on your podcast before he was famous? What about a super young Elon Musk, Gary Vee, Tim Ferriss, Pat Flynn, Jeff Bezos, Grant Cardone, people like that? What if you landed someone like that for just a quick 20-minute chat? What if you talked to Jeff Bezos, I guess you say it, before he was famous and while he was still on his way up? So doesn't it make sense to interview someone now, this day and age, who maybe in 2 or 3 years becomes the next Ryan Dice, in the next 5 or 6 years becomes the next Armin Morin? Interview someone on their way up, so that way you have that connection when they get at that higher level. So here's the best part. Well, are you nervous? Are you awkward on the phone? That's great, because I am too. I mess up things all the time. I say, I mispronounce words, whatever. With podcasting, you are the host, so no one really cares how you sound. You are interviewing them, so that guest is doing all the talking. And that guest, I guarantee you, is 10 times, if not 100 times more nervous than you, because that guest, they're trying to impress you. They're trying to impress your listeners with their thoughts, ideas, insights, takeaways, and websites. So all of the pressure is on them. You are just the one asking the questions. So we show you and tell you what kinds of questions to ask in our podcastcrusher.com course. But you know what? For the most part, have a guest on 20 minutes and just ask about what they do, ask about what makes them different, ask about what valuable lessons would have saved them from making years worth of mistakes, and maybe even ask them about what mistakes they see happening in the marketplace. And that way, you can even feel free to ask these same generic questions over and over, and they will have to supply you with the answers. And third, even if you don't want this, even if you don't want to have do these interviews, even if you don't want guests to create content for you for free, I don't know why you wouldn't, because they do all the work. Now your name is associated with theirs, all that stuff. Even if you just want to do it yourself, I guarantee that you personally, I'm talking directly to you personally right now, I guarantee that you can speak out a podcast episode if you do this. Type out 3 questions your customers might have, and no matter what niche it is, if it's knitting, if it's home gardening, or organic gardening, or weight loss, whatever, think of 3 questions your customers might have, and then list 3 sub-bullet points within each of those. So maybe we could maybe we could talk about, WordPress, and maybe we can say, well, what is WordPress? Could be one of the questions. Another question could be, what's the difference between a self-hosted WordPress blog and a hosted WordPress blog? And then finally, third could be, what's your favorite theme, or what's your favorite plugin, or something like that. And it would be very easy to speak out about those things, at least for me. And if I was really stuck, I could crack open each of those questions and list out just 3 quick 1 or 2 word bullet points to help me out. So if the question to answer is, what is WordPress? Where I can say it's a blogging or a journaling platform. I could say it's a way for you to create a beautiful site and add content without editing code using FTP. And then I could say you just go and you set up a blog, you click on new post, and you write that journal entry. And there we go. It's very easy for me to talk about that for just a couple of minutes, and even easier for me to talk about 3 of those questions, answer 3 of those questions in about 5 or 10 minutes. Super easy, right? 3 questions, within each question, 3 quick bullet points, and then that's like your guide to talk. And you know what too? Once you've recorded that episode, what does that give you? Well, recording a podcast episode, a single episode like you're listening to right now, gives us a blog post because our podcast episode lives on our blog. So you have a blog post where someone can go in a web browser or a phone and listen to your episode. And that also gives you a podcast episode in the iTunes app. So every iPhone, iPad, stuff like that has a built-in podcasting app. And so when someone searches either your name, your show, the title of one of your episodes, or a keyword. So for example, if I made a blog post or a podcast episode with the term WordPress, someone searches their podcast app for WordPress, that's yet one more way for someone to find me. And Apple.com also links to your site from their webpage. There's a directory for podcasts called Stitcher Radio, which a lot of people use. Now you have a link there. There's the Google Play Store. Now you have a link there. Plus, if someone is subscribed to your podcast using their smartphone, whether it's an Android, iPhone, whatever, if they are subscribed to your podcast, then the instant you, or at least within a few hours, but the same day that you post a new episode, their device will automatically download that episode. So the next time they fire it up, if they're on a walk, on a run, driving, sitting around home, whatever, if they fire up that podcast app, your episode is already downloaded and ready to play for them. So that's pretty cool, right? And you know what else is cool? It's that creating a podcast is free. You can create unlimited podcast shows. You can publish every day, 5 times a day, once a month, once a year, as little or as often as you want. You could post short 5-minute episodes. You could post 1-hour-long episodes. You can do this in any niche. You can talk about any subject. You can do this by yourself or with guests. Sounds great. But creating a podcast is hard if you're just fumbling around with trial and error. There are a couple of technical steps, not a lot, but like most technical things, there are about 1,000 different people on the internet giving you conflicting advice about how to do it, right? There is no shortage on the internet of people taking something simple and making it complicated. So don't try to go and figure it out and listen to one person about this and one person about that. I want to give you the fast, fun, easy, and inexpensive way to podcast using Podcast Crusher. So go right now to www.podcastcrusher.com. I'm Robert Plank. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing and hearing and subscribing to your podcast. So after buying the course, make sure to tell me, shoot me a quick message at robert@robertplank.com and tell me where your podcast is. Tell me what its name, where's the website, all that cool stuff so I can check it out and be proud of you. But set up a podcast, use podcastcrusher.com to do it. I'm Robert Plank, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. Thank you. Subscribe to us right now while it's still fresh on your mind at robertplank.com/iTunes, or just search Robert Plank in your iTunes app.